morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Rose. I'm President and CEO for the North San Diego Business Chamber, and we want to welcome you to our webinar this morning. First of all, my apologies. We had a few technical challenges. A lot more people decided to attend than we had planned for, but that's a good problem, right, Glenn?
It is.
This morning, I want to start off by thanking everybody for joining us and let you know this is a webinar series that we are going to be hosting hopefully every couple of weeks, a different one. We're really excited to have Glenn with us. And for those of you that don't know anything about the Chamber, we're the North San Diego Business Chamber, the only 5-star U.S. Chamber organization in San Diego and one of 10 in the whole state of California. And we're continuously advocating for business. And this is just one more way in providing some positive and some advocacy and some guidance to business. And we're glad that everybody's with us today. It's really an honor for me to introduce to you Glen Hopkins. Glen is the Chief Technology Officer for HP and also the Global Head for HP Inc. But even more important than that, he's one of our board members. And as most of you know, our chamber board is what leads the direction of the organization. And I have to tell you, we have some of the smartest people I know on our board. So thank you so much. Before we have Glenn start, I just want to give you a brief agenda. So Glenn's going to talk for about 40-45 minutes, and then we are going to open it up to Q&A. Everybody has a chat function on their Zoom. So put your questions into the chat, and then Glenn will be more than happy to answer those. If we go a little bit over 10 o'clock, that's fine. Stay if you can, and if you can't, we certainly understand. But we don't want to cut off any of the good answers that Glenn has. So with that being said, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, Deborah, thank you very much. I have actually been associated with the Chamber for quite some time before Deborah took over, and then certainly during her tenure. And I'm an executive with HP, the computer and printer company. For quite some time, I've worked directly out of our San Diego Rancho Bernardo site. And now I have a corporate function which has me up in Palo Alto a lot at our headquarters, but I still live in San Diego, actually Poway, and I'm talking to you from my home in Poway in these most extraordinary times. So I'm going to go through a lot. Actually, I have a lot of information I want to get in front of you, giving you context of the situation. Both kind of, at the virus level, but then getting into micro and macroeconomics, and then and the challenges associated with that. And then we'll get into some of the things, from how to lean into this in the future and bringing, technology to bear. What we're seeing a lot here is a real strong window of the future. In many sense, it's accelerating things that were already in play, and so we'll go through that and then hopefully get into some great Q&A. So now I'm going to switch over. I'll be sharing my screen and moving to the presentation. Okay, let's see here. So Brianna, it's not letting me share my screen.
Hi, Glenn. You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, perfect. Can we see it?
Glenn, we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, so we're all I actually spend all day long on Zoom meetings, but even a professional Zoom person's we have these challenges, but bear with us. It's great that we actually have the opportunity to connect to this. So it's really, COVID-19, resetting for the new normal, opportunities that wait in front of us. Here's the agenda that I'll be going over today, the data of COVID-19. I think it's just really important for us as business leaders and community leaders to really understand what's going on. No shortage of data. The question is what to do with it. I'm going to try and give you a little help on that. The macro and economic implications of it, The importance of a business continuity plan, whether you're small, medium, or large, it's really, really critical. Then we'll get into, it's kind of the meat of the presentation, which is COVID-19 is accelerating the digital future. No business will be immune to it. No organization actually is going to be immune to it. And then the new skills and capabilities that we need in the future to be able to survive this and thrive in that situation. I just start off with a kind of an overview chart here, which is that we are absolutely in a crisis. I mean, this is something that is truly unprecedented in most of our lifetime. And it's I have there in the bottom scrolling up there is empathy, but it's about having a tremendous understanding for our customers, our employees, for each other, partners, the community, and the environment. So let's take a look at the data, right? Really start, it's really important to wrap our minds around this because understanding how it's going to play out is going to be very crucial to how we deal and manage it. If you look at, I have to move the dialog box here out of the way for a second. Executive summary, until there's a vaccine or herd immunity is when enough people in the community have it that the rate of infection is naturally tamped down. The minimum number is 60%. Typically, it's about 80% of the people have to be immune. And so that's not going to happen without a vaccine. So that's just something that we all really have to understand. So we are going to see continuous disruptions as a result until a vaccine is developed and then tested and deployed, and that takes time. The good news is a lot of great work taking place there, but we're in this for a while, so adaptation is going to be crucial. Although the recovery timing is largely dependent on the duration of it and policy effectiveness therein, unprecedented employment is expected to drive unprecedented drop in GDP. And I'll get into those numbers. This is in our lifetime. We have not seen anything of this nature. A new normal should be expected. Both one-time and seasonal outbreaks will have a lasting impact on policies, rules, and drive changes in behavior and create growth, unprecedented stress, but also opportunities. And external experts overall recommendations, focus on your strategy. This is a new normal transformation. It requires scenario planning, assessment, orchestration of your initiatives to really be able to weather the storm and then to be able to effectively manage it in the coming months, quarters, and years actually. And prioritize digitization. You'll hear me a lot about that. I mean, the world has really changed a lot over the last 20 years, the last 10 years, as you know. It's the speed of that is going to be increasing, and in fact, is getting pulled up as a result of this. Let's get into the virus itself. There's a lot of great data out there. This is an interesting chart. What you're looking for is the flattening of these lines. This is the rate of new cases, and so you can see at the country level for the most especially the bigger countries, they're starting to flatten out. That's a real good sign. So that's when they start, so if you're getting away from that exponential growth into more of a flat or more stable predictive infection rate. Doesn't mean that it's going away, it just means it's slowing down, which is really important. This is having big impacts on customer dynamics. I'll read off a couple here. Social distancing results in consumers adapting new technology. This is an example of a video chat. We're conducting business, we're conducting, seminars, we're conducting all kinds of things, education across, virtual means. People are playing more video games. They're watching esports because there's no other sports to watch. The economic implications of that, though, are staggering. Decreased consumer spend across all retail categories, with the exception of online shopping. Amazon is hiring over 100,000 new employees because of this. For them, it's like a Christmas season all over again in that sense. I don't mean that to be that came out a little bit the wrong way. What I meant by that, though, is the amount of traffic that is moving to online is like at the height of the holiday season. Lots of activity moving to the home, to people's homes, actually, which is the increase in bandwidth that is required. Entertainment, virtual collaboration, you're seeing a lot of a lot of disruption in that industry, but you're also seeing some really neat, new and innovative ways to work around it. The impacts on small and medium businesses is just massive. The impacts to virtually all businesses is massive. Airline companies are running at 5% of the capacity that they had before. The entire travel industry has really been shut down. Just hugely problematic for so much of commerce out there. The bottom is some of my data is for big corporations, and there are some folks on the call here from big corporations. But some of it is going to be relevant to big, small, and medium. So I won't go into the bottom too much. You can read it. We'll make sure that you have access to this material too, so you don't have to, don't worry about studying it or missing certain things. We'll set it up for a way that you can go back and look at things in detail. The macroeconomic implications of this, like I said, were staggering. Since the end of World War II. This is only the second time, this is going to create a negative global GDP. So 2020, global GDP will be negative. Only the second time that this will happen since the end of World War II. The first time it happened was in 2008. That's a big deal. And so now what's going to happen from here? And it really depends on how this virus plays out. You can see over on the right, you can a 4-quadrant box. The line, kind of in the middle, the top 2 boxes, the bottom 2 boxes. The top 2 boxes, virus contained, virus not contained. The virus is not going to be contained. Now it's controlled. It's going to be controlled, but we won't be able to knock it down for it, most likely. And again, these are projections. So you have to take that, take that to heart, right? I nor nobody else can make a strong, definitive statement of the way this is going to play out. But but for us to plan, you have to have some sort of hypothesis that is based on some sort of foundational thought process that you put forward. So all, pretty much pretty much people believe that we're in this for the next few years. The virus is not going to be contained fully, so we're somewhere in those bottom 2 boxes. I don't think it's as bad as that red box, which is partial effective economic policy. You're especially seeing in the big countries or the big unions, right? The U.S., the European Union, China, they're going to put tremendous amount of stimulus dollars into this at play, and that's already happening. So it's going to be somewhere on the bottom, somewhere hopefully to the right on that lighter green box. This slide, a lot of numbers in here. What's important to note is just the what I just go to the bottom of the chart, go to 2020. And you look at the magnitude of the GDP contraction. Now starts coming back in 2021. We get back to in 2022, which is really great. So what does this all mean? It's this new normal. Both one-time and seasonal outbreaks will have a lasting impact on policies, rules that drive changes and behavior and create opportunities. There's 2 scenarios here. I grayed out one-time outbreak. That's not going to happen. You're already seeing this. You've seen this in China. You've seen it in Singapore. You're seeing it in Hong Kong. The ones that got it, were on the front end of it, worked through it, were able to kind of contain it, control it, and then it's refestering itself. And I think that's just going to be the norm of this around the world at just different rates. So so we're looking at the bottom half of this chart. And so what's the impact of the customer? Increased anxiety and depression. They're already reporting that. Take out everything in automated stores, right? Austerity is the new norm. When people are afraid of whether it's their savings or having a job or not having a job, this creates just a natural austerity, which translates into lack of buying. attention on sustainability, we're being able to actually more to be able to reuse things from a commercial perspective. Value of a certified immune contact, right? People are afraid, and there's good reason to be afraid. Personal priorities are reshaped. Surveillance mechanisms are accepted. For example, one ingenious way that they're looking at being able to help with keeping the virus from deploying, to being more and more people getting infected is, with, say, if, an app on your phone, the app on your phone that could, determine who was within close proximity and where you were, and be able to triangulate that if somebody was to, contact the virus and then to notify you. I mean, that feels like Big Brother. I mean, that is so scary on so many levels, except when our collective health is at risk. It starts to sound pretty good. So, I mean, these are things for us to really start to internalize and to project forward, right? Which is things that in normal times would not be acceptable in times of this nature may very well become desirable. And so, how do we maneuver through that as individuals, a community, and institutions and businesses? Speaking of businesses, companies in certain sectors, are in trouble. There is no doubt about it. Logistics, when the last mile providers increase business, right, is how do I get goods and service to, when they say last mile, it's to us, in our homes or into our place of business. That becomes very crucial. Online businesses are really, or the online aspect of your business is going to be really important, because traditional channels get disrupted. Supply chains get disrupted. Just getting the goods and services to you is really, really crucial. And then the roles that government and technology provide there. This is just to put it in perspective. There's a lot of people that die every year from the flu. Last year was a bad flu year. Almost 80,000 people died in the United States. And so it's not like viruses aren't around us all the time, and it's pretty impactful. This one is obviously much more impactful, and that's what this slide is about. All right, this is why there's so much worry about COVID-19 versus the seasonal flu. Medium hospital stay, 12 days versus 3.6 days. Hospitalization rate 10x greater. Fatality rate substantially worse. Let's skip that slide and just get into this. Now, it's the fatality rate and the sickness rate is really goes after a certain portion of our population, as what you see here. The older you are, it's a nasty respiratory virus, and so the older you are, the more susceptible you are going to be to a severe sickness, and unfortunately leading to death for some pretty large percentage, as represented by this. This was from early China data. This is a better sample of the data with regards to other countries, but it says the same thing, right? The older portion of our population is absolutely is at the most risk, which is why, rightfully so, there's so much attention to that area. And certainly too, if you have underlying health conditions labeled here, you're also at risk. So it's I talked about the seasonal flu is actually a very large number, twice the number of people die from that than, say, automobile accidents. But we've kind of become kind of numb to it in a sense. This one is a much nastier. And so all the reasons for all the reasons that that they're taking it so serious, shutting down business for a certain length of time is really it was really the right move. Now, this there is the reason they have we call it the flu season. These viruses tend to really proliferate during the colder portions of the year, and then they don't go away, but then they reemerge. And so there is hope. There's a bit of a, somewhat of a, controversy whether, temperature and how temperature sensitive it is. My personal opinion is it is temperature sensitive. We won't be able to just bank on that. But I think that we're going to see a bit of a respite of it in the coming, over the coming 3 or 4 months, with a combination of all the social distancing, our ability to combat it, temperature, people maybe not be in close proximity because they're outdoors more than indoor. But don't be complacent. It's every indication that this is going to come back in the coming fall. Now, one thing to look at is the daily rate of new cases. This is the U.S. I skipped a couple of slides there. Just kind of looked at different countries. You're looking at the rate. The rate is the most important. When you see it on the left, where the rate is increasing, can be increasing exponentially in the very beginning. That's a very bad sign. When the rate starts to flatten out is a good sign, and when the rate starts coming down, that's a very good sign. The good news is that California is really doing well. Its rate has flattened out, and if you look at the infection rate and the death rate in the United States, it's probably in 4th or 5th place, well below New York. And if you look at it from a per capita, people infected by, as a percent of population, California is doing quite well, which is good news for our state. And then this is down here at the San Diego level. And you can see, what people, I don't really like the way this gets presented because your eye is drawn to the total cases, but those are cumulative cases. What you really want to do is focus on the new cases, the orange. And you can see that the rate of new cases has been flat for the most part for quite some time, and at a relatively small number per our population. So that is also good news for those here that I think most of us live here and do business here, and so. As things go, we're in a better place than a number of other large cities in the world. And then finally, this, when they say flattening out the curve, this is what they're really talking about, which is if we didn't take on these precautions, didn't really, slow down, if not almost shut down our society for the time that we did, it would just absolutely have overwhelmed the medical system. And so we have a great job, and we have indeed, I think, flattened it out. And so it's manageable, but it's not going away. So let's get into the macroeconomic conditions. It's just, they're severe. We're going to see, like I said, a big hit to GDP. The shock in the system is unprecedented, right? We've never seen. I've had economists tell me that we've never ever seen that much business, that much commerce drop that fast ever. And so there's a reason that we're feeling so much pain. This is really, really attacked. That commerce shutdown has really disproportionately, impacted, some key areas: hotels, movies, Broadway, sports, retail, commercial, to name it, restaurants and things of that nature. It is really, really a tough situation. This is what is the impact in the GDP, from a kind of an overall net to where we would. The top line is the stimulus package that are in place, which is, this next slide is a little bit better indicator of what we can expect from GDP. Now, it will take us probably 2+ years to get back to the type of annualized GDP we had going into this. So what this chart just shows is that the second quarter is a horrific GDP. This is global GDP for the world, dropped 40% in second quarter, unprecedented. Now, quarter to quarter, we'll start to see a rebound. It will take time to get back to where we were, but the projection is that the world is going to be starting to crawl its way out of this predicament as we look forward. And you're already starting to see elements of that here in San Diego, where things are starting to loosen up. The impact on unemployment is also unprecedented. This is a U.S. number. It's not up. We've added another 4.5 million this last week. Unprecedented in the U.S. And we've had some tough recessions and depressions, but nothing this high, this fast. Hitting these categories here, of where we're seeing the job losses, because they have been the most directly impacted by the shutdown. There is belief, and I think there's good belief, is that these the furloughs and some of the layoffs will come back. They're not jobs lost forever, but will be a direct function of the economy rolling its way back. This slide gets into what to expect, right? I think we're gonna see things really. We're gonna see, especially from a relative term, we'll see really strong improvement over the next few months, and it'll feel like things are getting back to good. It's quite unlikely that this would not come back again. I think it comes especially in the fall, but I think you're going to see some resurgence of it, right? Which is, there's a lot of people out there that are going to still have it. As we relax the social distancing, I think we get numb to it. That you may see the infection rates start to tick up. And if it's anything like other viruses, we should see it's like a flu season coming upon us, but a bad flu that tends to be more contagious and certainly more deadly than the one we're used to looking at. So just going to touch on the importance of business continuity plans. This is something corporations do all the time, but even corporations don't do a very good job of it. My own corporation, we thought we had a good business continuity plan, which is okay. It's planning. It's planning for events, events that are unlikely, but if they happen, could be incredibly disruptive. And then what might those events be, and how might you handle it? So even the large corporations don't do a great job of it, but they do plan around it. And then as you get into medium and small, or other just institutions, I'm sure there's people on this call that, well, I don't work for a business. Yes, but you work for an institution. I might be an institution might be college education, high school education, grammar school education, daycare, whatever. It's just, so I think you have to, without driving yourself crazy and turning it into an activity trap, but you should have a plan and strategy to deal with that. Let's get back to kind of what it's going to take to get back to business. There's a lot of things that people are going to be worried about. The possibility where it makes sense. The more you can work remotely, the better. But there's a lot of business that just can't deal with that. Reduce the density the best you can. The 6 foot rule really applies. Protective equipment for your employees, cleaning, really being diligent about cleaning and staying diligent about that. We'll get lackadaisical, and I think you have to guard on that. This thing is going to be out there to some degree, and also in your place of business, if you have an issue that arises there, it can be incredibly disruptive. You may have to shut down for 2 weeks to make sure that it's been eradicated and go through a lot of other things to get up and running. So it's just best to err on this side of caution. Be careful about travel. Make sure your employees have all the right equipment and are doing all the right thing. And as a leader, it's really, really important. Lots and lots of communication to the employees to make sure they understand the seriousness of the situation and the reasons behind your actions. So just really good and lines of communication on both sides. I'm gonna skip this slide because I want to get into the you know, the part that I think you guys are most interested in. Okay, okay, where's the opportunity, right? And this is if this is all the scare, you know, what do we do and how do we lean into this? You know, what I said was that this is really a window into the future in a sense. It's accelerating. You know, a crisis like this accelerates things that have already been taking place, right? Was, you know, how is it that we're all on a Zoom meeting right now? You know, because that, you know, these virtual tools, the fact that we have smartphones, the fact that we have PCs, the fact that we, you know, we have the understanding ability to, you know, weave our way around the internet is not new to anybody on this phone, which, you know, on this call. Which is why we are having this this webinar today. But it's accelerated that. I mean, so much business now has moved to you know, things like Zoom or to virtual, and that's what this, you know, this chart here was done before this crisis, but it just already, you know, shows, you know, the amount of commerce that is taking place over the, you know, internet versus brick and mortar. These are the key reasons that people shop online, and none of them there says because I only have any other choice. I mean, that would just dominate all of that if that would had been, you know, in consideration when this chart was created. Which gets me now into the new skills and how to you know, thrive in this future. It's just, it's what I say here is, you know, I got brick and mortar, you know, your walk up, you know, your walk up store, your walk up location, your walk up institution, whatever it is, and then you have online. And there's been this debate, well, this versus that. Now you can make all kinds of, you know, projections why brick and mortar is better. I mean, and brick and mortar just is a term that established a physical location where humans come in to do something, versus online, versus virtual. You know, what's better, what's not. I will tell you that is not the right conversation. It's not this versus that. It's this plus that, or this or that. So whatever it is you do, you want to have a strategy so that however your customer wants to interact with whatever your good or service might be, they can do both. And if you had to do one versus the other, if that was really a choice, and it is a choice for some, you would have to, you know, be very, very conscious of why you are making that a choice, and then how you are going to be able to, you know, be able to be viable in the future, where more and more is moving towards a virtual, you know, virtual forms of commerce transactions, or you know, as I say, goods and service. I've been in San Diego for 20 years or so. I love this guy, King Stallman. I loved him because his commercials were just fantastic. Not because I spent a good time in jail, but his commercials were fantastic. He was authentic, and I read, you know, I just read up on him, and he was a really, really, I mean, just a very astute business person. And his motto was early to bed, early to rise, advertise, advertise, advertise. And that was true then, and that is true now. And that is something, though, that the tools are different, right? Though billboards do still exist, there are a lot more powerful ways to connect to your customer. And I'm going to just talk about these for a little bit. Never in the history, ever, has it been cheaper, easier, more powerful, or far-reaching to write, produce, direct, star, and distribute your establishment, your brand, your value proposition, or your story. Think about that. I mean, think about today, us as individuals, right? We can create a global business by ourselves at the, you know, through the fingertips of a, you know, to a computer. When I talk about being able to write and produce and direct and then distribute a commercial, right? That's a you know, you take your phone out and you videotape it, you know, post it up on YouTube, and you do some other things that I'll talk about here in a second. It's just unbelievably powerful and unbelievably cost effective, and the reach is worldwide. It's really, really mind-boggling to actually think, though, of all can be done now down to the individual level. What I find incredibly captivating and what's really exploding is just, the power of these individually produced videos, these, do it yourself, the fact that they're, in many cases, the fact that they're non-professional, actors or actresses that are creating them, and just, and just showing you what's possible and what can be done in a compelling fashion. It is just it's a mega trend of the future, and something really, really important to wrap your brain around and embrace. It's just they're great engagement tools. My other point here is running or managing business or an institution is really hard. It's incredibly hard, and it's much harder than these actual new digital tools. And so, really, all of us, a lot of these things have come up. We would be on the older side of the population here, I'm suspecting. So it seems a little bit foreign to us, but really not any harder. It's not hard. It's actually, it is not harder than what it is you do in your leadership role that you're in today. And if you just don't have the interest or the time to go, and I say, go out and hire a teenager for minimum wage, because they love this stuff, they know this stuff, and with your direction, they can create some wonderful things for you. I'll start off just with the basics. For goodness sakes, take care of your website. And websites are still absolutely crucial. Really understand how they work, the search rank. There is a methodology and an algorithm that is used to see where you show up. I just grabbed a page here, which is I just Rancho Bernardo house cleaners, right? Everything you're seeing right here is paid. Right, those top three is it's through you're paying Google something, or the other two where they put ad in front because they were forced to, because it's they're paying to be up front. Now, when you get below that, then it's by activity based, right? It's just by how many people go out to that site, and the more people that go out to that site, the higher their rank will be. If you're not on the first page, if you just go out to Google and you go whatever it'll be a function of your screen size. But if you're not on the first page, that's a problem. And if your website is not a compelling and engaging website, that's a problem. If your ratings are low, whether they're a Google rating or a review even on your own website or a Yelp rating, that's a problem. And so just making sure you're taking care of those basics. Now let's get into the social mobility aspect of it. You absolutely need a social mobile strategy. You absolutely need. I'll go back to King Solomon. I mean, King Solomon, if he was alive today, he would have a crazy powerful social mobile strategy. 70% of the U.S. buying public has a smartphone, and that number is only it's on its way to 100. For business, these are the big players. I'm going to go through them in a little bit of detail, but because we're running out of time here, I'm not going to go into great detail on them. But all these won't be the right. You don't need all of these. And depending on what your business or institution or activity is, some will be more pertinent than others, but you absolutely need to be aware of these and others, so you know what they do, who they reach, how they reach it, and how you can take advantage of it. Right now, Facebook, just by sheer volume of users, is a really, really important. 2.5 billion daily active users. Very aggressive in advertising. You have to pay for this one. You have to pay for general advertising, but so that's the other ones is a little bit better. Other ones I'll talk about. You don't have to just pay and just hope. You can pay by activity, but there's no denying that Facebook's reach is really, really broad, and they're very, very powerful, and their ad platform is sophisticated. So is our messaging. You want to, now this is in this new world, this new age, you want to have a relationship with your customer. And anybody who has paid money has a customer of some nature. You want to have that relationship. as opposed to it's it's some sort of composite person who buys my product. No, it's Deborah Rawson. She buys this. She's my customer. She buys this, this, and this, and she likes this, this, and this, and I'm going to offer her that, that, and that. That is where the world is going. That is why Amazon is so powerful. All of you use Amazon. You're certainly all aware of it. They are and they collect so much information on about you, and they know you, and you know them, and that creates a very, very virtuous cycle. All of us, like I say, all of us that require a customer to succeed need to have those kinds of relationship. Instagram is a powerful one. It's just this is more business focused, but if you're business to business, this is a great one. Pinterest. This is a fascinating stat in here. 291 million active users, 80% women. 93% of active pinners said they'd use Pinterest to plan a purchase. Pinner is somebody that puts something up on Pinterest. Go to where your customers are and find ways to engage them. Snapchat. This is something that as parents you go, oh God, I hope my kids aren't on Snapchat. Well, we used to say the same thing about Facebook. This is exploding now with the virus because people are finding different ways to connect. And Snapchat is actually a very visual type of social media application, and that's the business you want that because pictures and videos are engaging, pulls people in, but they have to be engaging. You just can't just throw things out there, right? That's the whole idea of a different kind of virus, right? Which is viral, viral media, viral posts are things that capture the imagination of folks, so they share it and reshare it and reshare it. And so you got to put some thought into it, but then these things can just, get tremendous amount of traction. YouTube is unbelievably underutilized by business. It's free. It's free. And you can make a YouTube video yourself, right? And then you can link it to a social media account. You can link it to your website. You can do whatever. And what a great way. I mean, people they read less and less and less. They watch and more. So, to be able to capture their imagination or to be able to educate them or help them in their shopping or whatever their experience is, not really embracing and taking full advantage of YouTube is a real mistake. And Google's ad platform is very sophisticated. And things that I like about it is that it can be based on activity, right? Which is you can whether you're using what's called AdWords or links inside of a Google website or a Google search, you don't pay unless people click, and that's a very attractive as a business where you're really trying, and you can cap the amount of payments and clicks that you're willing to work with in a given month. So it gives you a tremendous amount of control at a pretty affordable price. Twitter, right? Which is Twitter. A lot of people go, well, what is Twitter? We have the Twitter in chief that creates a lot of attention, but it's a fabulous engagement tool. I mean, it gets kind of lost in that conversation. But wow, I could reach every person in the world. I could short circuit everything and go from the top of the company down to my customer, the top of my country down to my customer. In this case, the voting public. I mean, don't underestimate the power of that. I think LinkedIn. I think when I was talking about Instagram is really powerful. I think I was using LinkedIn there. Instagram is really, really powerful because it's not only attached to the Facebook advertising platform, but it's also very visual, very kind of video and picture based. TikTok, but many of you might have heard of. This is where the next generation, Gen Z is going after this because it's short videos, entertaining videos, but it's going to be for that next generation customer. Then there's Yelp. Pay attention to Yelp. A lot of people, they're looking for verification, asking, I ask my friends for advice, but Yelp, I can just see what 100, 1,000 others are saying about an establishment. Just as a little bit of a, kind of where are things going. This is, virtual stores. There's websites, but what they're finding is that people like the whole idea of shopping. And so stores forever have been laid out in a way that were conducive for people to shop. And so this young lady here is shopping at a grocery store, but that is just a display. That's actually a display in a subway station in Tokyo, and she's finding what she likes, and then she clicks on that with her, points her phone at it and buys it, and then it shows up at her house, not too far from there. And then ultimately, things like artificial, reality or virtual reality, or augmented reality is that phone. Somebody comes in and, just in a real store, in this case, points it around and it's telling you, all kinds of important information. So augmenting the physical experience. The one on the right, you're not going to find, certainly not not that young lady walking around Nordstrom's with that contraption on her head, but you may very well find that, and people like her with something like that on their head and shopping in the comfort of their home, feeling like, in fact, having that full experience of the being in the store without having to actually be in the store. So in summary, I just say this is not a life extinction event by any means, but it's a dangerous one. We can't panic. That said, the implications of this virus will be with us in the world for some time, so we need to adapt to it. This will have significant impacts on the global economy over the next 2 years, so the better days are ahead. There's not a lot of data that shows that the macroeconomy was set up to fail as in 2008. So many people believe that the rebound will be significantly better than what 2008, which took quite some time. The virus, COVID-19, dramatically accelerated a shift to digital. And so we really, to sort of survive and thrive in this, in this future world, we have to embrace digital. It's going to come back in some shape or form, probably multiple times. So be prepared. I mean, don't be surprised when that happens, because I think it's when, not if. And again, success in the future requires very strong understanding and competent expertise in these digital ecosystems, both the ones that exist now and the ones that come in the future. And then finally, just a couple of quotes, to really, leave on a positive note. This is from Warren Buffett. We simply attempt to be fearful when others are exuberant, and exuberant only when others are fearful. I can tell, and so he kind of subscribes to the next quote. Well, Andy Grove was the CEO for Intel for a long time. The best things about recessions is that they always end. Plan for it. And Intel became so powerful because during recessions, they spent billions of dollars of building new semiconductor fabrication facilities because they knew the economy would come back, and they knew if they did that, they would be positioned to benefit it where others weren't. And then as sure as the spring will follow, prosperity and economic growth will follow a recession. So thank you. And well, we now get into questions. And we have one. So it's, let's see. Thanks, Glenn, for the presentation. I guess maybe you guys can all read it. Let's see. If I understand correctly, the analysis you presented at the beginning is based on a one-time event. If so, yeah, I'd say probably maybe this was written a bit ago. No, it's not a one-time event. I mean, this is a one-time mega event at least for our generation. But I think that the virus is here to stay. For sure. So hopefully, yeah, that was asked only 10 minutes ago. Hopefully, I addressed most of that. I think that, like I said, I think over the next, I think it's gonna. I mean, don't take just don't take just my word. I mean, this is one person's opinion. I do think that. It's going to abate a bit here over the next 3 to 4 months, but most things that I've said and read that it's going to come back, perhaps aggressively in the fall. So we just have to be prepared. I own an outdoor soccer facility. Do you have any ideas on how to handle sporting activities? You know, this is what I was talking about with regards to, you know, leaning into this, right? I mean, you're a parent. What's more terrifying? You know, the most terrifying thing for you is the safety of your children. And yet, you know, you want them outside. You want them playing. You want them to be able to. You know, to get back to normal life. If I have a soccer facility and I say, okay, what's worst case? Worst case is, you know, some sort of protective covering and 6 feet of social distancing. Or okay, now I'm going to come up with a soccer camp. Or soccer, you know, some sort of soccer activities, or all kinds of things that I can do just that. I can adhere to whatever the guidelines are, or even the recommendations, but I can get those kids out there playing soccer. To me, it's innovation, it's creativity, as opposed to saying, wow, okay, this sucks. I just, you know, my business is not going to be able to get back going until all this goes away. I think we had a couple of chat lines here. Hard to commit dollars to advertising now, but would agree is necessary, especially digital. Yeah, absolutely. But don't underestimate that the amount of free advertising that's actually available out there on social media or out there on your website. You know, people looking and coming to you. And so instead of looking at Facebook and Facebook Messenger, I would look at Google, certainly in the Google platforms, but also then ways to get people just interacting with you over, you know, whether it's Instagram or some of the others, you know, social media platforms, for sure. Let's see, as a parent, I'm looking forward to camps. I hope all the events scale their products to the new normal rather than canceling. I do too. I think I think we have to find a way to get us all out there, get our kids back out there. I think it'll just require some trade-offs and trade-offs about not in the safety, but, you know, the experience. But having people locked up all day long is not good. I do predict, and I think you're already seeing it, that, you know, you're already seeing creativity in many places. I was just saw on the news this last week where a restaurant turned itself into a gourmet grocery store. It's brilliant, right? He just says, okay, you know, I mean, it was a higher end restaurant, and so they have a very good understanding of how to make higher end food, and nobody can come in to eat their higher end food, so they turned into a gourmet grocery store, which is then all of a sudden they went from being from being a unnecessary service to a necessary service. To me, it's just, you know, how do you just get creative?
Hey, Glenn, we have somebody that's raised their hand, Dolores Canizales. I'm going to tap on her so she can ask her question.
Absolutely.
Dolores, are you on? Dolores, are you on? Okay.
Hey, how are you? I think I might have pushed it by mistake, but I do want to say I really appreciate the information. I think it's really important for the education environment to take this information and kind of implement it into our future. But I just would welcome any thoughts you have about what you see as some of the critical issues facing the school districts.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I'm absolutely and have been, as actually as part of my job, it just as a parent and a citizen and passionate about education. And I am not a proponent of 100% virtual education. I mean, I'm actually very against, virtual education, because I think the interaction with the teachers or the professors and the faculty and the other students and all that dynamic is so important to the educational experience. Okay, yeah, but what about now? Or what about supplements to that? I go, oh, absolutely. Supplements to, traditional education, or as a necessity, as we're having now. I absolutely. And so to me, I believe it's both. It's virtual, it's physical. I believe that, focus, comprehension, retention. I still a strong proponent of books, and a strong proponent of putting pencil to paper, if you will. Well, that's what, printers are for. Virtual classrooms like this, right, which is, or could be a virtual classroom, is that we have to, Zooming, right? In fact, it's interesting is that it's almost easier in some ways. It's just like, it's a different experience. If, my class of, 20 or 30, 30 kids is, they're on Zoom, it's possible to get that done. And how do you do that really, really well? How do we get really, really better at it? Because I would say, as both from a contingency planning perspective, but also as a really fascinating supplement to the education experience. And so that's, I would have all educational institutions really, really leaning into this, and says it's not this versus that, it's that plus this, that we could really generate the experience. And as a society, I know there's concern about not everybody has access to these tools. I would flip that around, which says that's like saying, kids don't have access to schools and teachers. This is the new normal. So one way or another, every student has to have the ability to be able to learn from home and learn in the traditional setting.
Thank you.
I have some other questions here. What are your thoughts on strategic tactical planning guidelines for those businesses who are planning to have employees ultimately return to office? I think that is your strategy is, okay, are you weathering this storm? And that's why I went into so much detail on how I think this virus is going to play out. Because if I have a business and I'm saying, okay, boy, I've got to gut this thing out over the next couple of months, and this next 2 years is going to be a bit rocky, but my business is still fundamentally viable. It's just still fundamentally viable. And then I am planning on it being viable. And then I'm planning on, on employees coming back. And maybe it's the employees that you unfortunately had to furlough and you really want them to come back. Then you have to say, okay, how do I bridge that? Right? Because, can I pay them? Can I pay them a little bit? Maybe, or just stay in contact with them and try and find ways to support them. Because you know that your plan is that you're coming back, the business is coming back, you want them to come back, and you're putting that effort in. Which is different if your strategy was, wow, maybe my business is it's going to be half the size of that it was before. And so I've got to downsize everything to be able to get to the right functionality, because I just believe it's going to be half. And it's just really, really situational, but I think you really have to dig into that. I have a question here from a college student. What do you think about the challenges and difficulties for the class of 2020 into the job market? Well, this is really it's tough. It's so tough, right? Because there was a good article in the Wall Street Journal about this, which is that class of 2020, for college was getting ready to enter in the hottest job market perhaps in the history, at least in the last 50 years. and goes from the it goes from the very best job market in the last 50 years to perhaps the worst job market in the last 50 years. So that's hard to take. Now, I would say that the economy will come back. Those jobs, the vast majority of those jobs are still viable jobs, and they will, employment will absolutely pick up. I would say that, if I was a, college student, I would look for ways to, I would be active. There will be people getting hired. They're guaranteed there will be people getting hired. So be more aggressive than you might have been before this came in. At a minimum, keep learning, right? Keep growing in some way. I mean, just keep growing. It might be, the typical answer might have been, oh, well, travel. Well, maybe I can't travel anymore. I would just say, whatever you do, keep growing, keep learning, keep improving your skills. And this thing is going to, we'll work through this, and that wherever you are, whether it's 6 months from now or a year and a half from now, you'll be a more employable person than you would have been otherwise. The travel, short and long-term traveling. The short-term is catastrophic, absolutely, just catastrophic. Longer term, it's going to be a slower recovery than other things. People are, when you talk about social distance, you got multiple things working in your distance if you're in the travel industry, right? From a social distancing perspective, you're putting people in situations where there's, some of our most, maximum crowds, right? The airport, an airplane. If it's travel, by that way, cars are a little bit different. And then you have the, either the reality or the perception that leaving your metro area. So I think that industry, and that industry will be very, very creative, and you're already seeing it. For example, I travel a lot, or used to, with regards to my business. I got a note from Alaska Airlines just this last week, which is they will not be booking middle seats. You can't buy a middle seat because that's their way of doing spacing. And yes, it hurts them from their economics. Fill that plane up to the last seat. Now it's just get people back on those planes. And I think, and hotels, I'm seeing this, hotels prices are really, really coming down because they just need people to come back. So I think, you want to, if you're in that industry, you're looking to how do I get my clientele back? How do I incent them to come back, with attractive deals? And how do I absolutely make them feel like they will be safe are the keys. I think, I talked about the education in a bit here. I think that, and I went into why I'm a really, really strong believer in, on-site learning. And so I see these things as supplement, but in this time, right, when there is, universities shut down, just like, like the others, the K through 12 did. I think you have to go to really, really strong effort is how do you maintain that community? And things like this, Zoom meetings, right? Zoom meetings and outreach meetings and and different other types of creative, types of things that people feel like okay, I may not be on campus, but I am part of that institution. It is something that that brings great satisfaction to me, a great community to me. I'm every bit as engaged with it. Maybe not every bit as engaged, but I'm highly engaged with it, even though I'm not, walking to class or with all my classmates on a daily basis. I think that's just absolutely key. Not easy to do, but super, super important to do. Let's see, I have a couple of other ones over here. Let's see, one more. As a parent, I'm looking forward to camps. I don't think it's similar, but I don't think I've answered. I hope all events scale their products to the new normal rather than canceling. Yeah, I think I tried to address that earlier, right? I think it's going to be adaptation, and creativity on how to hold true to the directions that we're getting, but find it. I mean, that's the my profession is engineering science, right? I'm CTO for HP, so it's when I talk and when I give innovation talks, right? People think, well, I'm not an engineer or I'm not a scientist, so this doesn't pertain to me. And I will tell you, creativity and innovation is an equal opportunity employer. It's in all of us. You do it all week long, and you don't give yourself enough credit for it. And so now you just have to embrace the moment and get super creative, super innovative. Don't be don't let this be don't be a victim to this. Find a way that to whatever it is, whatever it is you're doing or want to do or need to do, find a way to be able to do it. Accept the fact it won't be the same, but don't resolve yourself to, well, there's nothing I can do about it, and that's being the victim. A couple questions here. Okay, what can we do as chamber members to help alleviate the impact of this on the local economy? Will there be wide availability of testing for everybody? How real is the fear of the second wave? Let me start from the bottom and work up. The projection of the second wave is very real. It will be extremely unlikely if it doesn't happen. It's really a question of to what severity. Now, we'll be looking for it very, society will be looking for it very carefully and closely. So what I predict will happen is that it will start to reemerge in certain places. It will get identified very quickly, and then corrective actions will take place very quickly. So that's my biggest concern for the business owners and the institutional leaders, is that you will that you'll have to, don't be surprised at that. Right. Oh, whoops, we've had 3 or 4 cases, or now we are worried about more cases. So you have to shut down your business, or this portion of your institution, or this part of the city is going to go on lockdown again for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it's going to be more like that because we're hyper sensitive. The problem, there's going to be more and more testing, which is good. There is no indication that the number of tests that are really needed are going to be available to us for any not till some point well into the future. I mean, it's just almost an impossible task, right? We would have to, I mean, if you wanted to test the entire US population, that's 300 million tests. And that's just, okay, and if you're negative, that's great. You're negative today. Well, what about next week and the week after? So just the volume of tests is just mind-boggling. But there will be more and more of them, so that will help. Also, our ability to deal with the actual virus, if you get it, is going to get better and better. And so this is, so my prediction is that, that there's a lot of things. I mean, the world has never really, this is like a time of war, right? It's a time of war when the world has never been working on the exact same thing. Unlike the time of war, we're actually collaborating across the board on how to attack this. So expect a lot of things to get better. As chamber members, to alleviate the impact of the local economy, I think what we need to do, we need to be helping each other, really. I mean, there's so much of this is situational, and so sharing information at my corporation level, you know, I work for a very, very large corporation. You know, our other corporations, our competitors, our, you know, other ones of similar size, their willingness and desire to talk to each other and learn from each other is unprecedented. We all have one thing in common. We want to just get back to where we were. So we're all looking for different ways to help each other out. You know, my company we're involved in 3D manufacturing. And the Business Journal just did an interview with us yesterday, and it was all about, you know, we're just making things for the community and giving them away. Why are we doing that, right? We're doing that just to help. Just like I said, to get us all back to normal. I feel bad because my internet dropped off 30 minutes ago. Well, that is not an unusual problem, but glad to have you back, Denise. Let's see if I have any more. Some countries have been ineffective in opening up businesses with alternative day schedules. Oh, have been effective in opening up alternative schedules, minimize crowds. You think San Diego could do something like that? Yeah, I think it can. I mean, I breezed through a couple of, they were pretty wordy slides, and I felt like you know, I wasn't going to get to some of the other things, so I skipped over that. But there are certain, you know, what companies are doing, but what countries are doing, you know, or cities could do a similar thing, which is that the companies, especially ones that have a lot of employees, they have what they call AB shifts. So there's an A team and a B team, and they in some cases, like, you know, the A team, you know, it may be on different parts of the day. Okay, the A team is here, the B team is here. So, you know, I would just say, okay, you know, 6 a.m. to 12, and then from 12 to 6 would be the A and B team, and they don't interact with each other, right? So there's no interpersonal things going on there to share it. Now that's a little bit, you know, so you get that one-to-one interaction limitation, which is good, but there may be some contamination of the work environment. So what others are doing is just say, okay, the A team is this week, and the B, then we clean, disinfect, and do all that, and then the B team comes in the next week and starting from scratch, and they kind of alternate that. You could see, you know, where that it's kind of like back when we did like gas rationing or whatnot, right? Which is, you could say, okay, you're an A, you know, this is the A group, B group, C group, and D group. And A group, you get to go out, you know, you get to go out on you know, these days, and the B group on these days. You could. I think that would be hard to manage, but I think, you know, what I'm hearing is like restaurants are just going to say, okay, I'm gonna limit the number of tables. I'm going to take out half my tables, and I'm going to have spacing around those tables, and so therefore I can create a safe environment. But it's going to be for fewer people, and maybe I have to charge more because I just be able just to survive. And you may very well find people say, I'm willing to spend more because I am so tired of eating in my house, right? That would be another example. I like others are, you know, huge baseball fans. I mean, I'm just, gosh, I'm crazy. I can't watch it, but, you know, I would love to be able to go to a Padre game. And, you know, well, what if instead of, you know, 40,000 fans, it's only 10,000 fans, and then, you know, sitting in these places, and it's going to be twice the amount of money that, you know, a ticket cost last year. I go, I'd pay that. I would, you know, I think, you know, I think others would too. And if, you know, and how do you know? I mean, you might have, you know, let you try. So I also, just examples of get creative. Deborah, I think we're almost out of time here. Maybe I turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. Yes, actually, we had a couple more questions on there, but we can probably get back to them via email. So Glenn, thank you so much. Your perspective was really interesting. And I have to say, this is why I believe the chamber is as strong as it is, because our board members are so strategic. They're smart. They drive our future, and they're doing it now. So Glenn, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I know I'm going to see you a lot today, because we do have a board meeting this afternoon on moving our direction forward. So if anybody wants to reach out to Glenn, go ahead and email me, and I'll just forward the questions to Glenn. And with that being said, thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to continuing these types of conversations. We do have one coming up the first week of May, and it's going to be marketing. The marketing ideas and strategies for all different industries with this new normal. We can't market the same way that we did have in the past. It's like communication. It's going to be very different today than it was, say, 5 months from now. So we will be bringing these webinars to you quite a bit. I've had several people ask me, are we going to make these slides available? Yes, we are, Glenn, if that's okay with you. And
Yep.
we have recorded this on today. I don't know how Brianna is going to save that. Brianna, are you on, and can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, once we get the video, we'll most likely either upload it to YouTube or to Facebook, and we can send out a link to everybody.
Great. I know Channel 10 had this on their Facebook Live. They had a couple hundred people watching it, and several people have asked for it live on there too. So again, thank you so much, everybody. Glenn, thank you. You're a rock star. I always tell you that. And we look forward to staying in touch with you. If you're not a chamber member and you want to get our updates, just reach out to us and let us know, and we'll put you on our email database. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.